When people think about Train Mountain, they think about the world's largest 7.5-inch gauge railroad, but they also have a great display of full-size, as they call it, one-to-one scale equipment, including this snow equipment. So let's take a quick walking tour. This is a Weyerhaeuser snow dozer number WX031, one of 3 built around 1941 in Klamath Falls shop. It was based on a 40-foot flat car, heavily modified for this new purpose. Most everything runs on compressed air, including the wings and the nose. Here you can see the wing with the sliding mechanism. There's a cable and chain system that controls the vertical height of the inner section. It goes up through the car body there, and I think the chain is there to lock it in place. The outer tip of the wing is controlled with that swing brace, and then there's a little bracket made with an old piece of rail that the wing rests on. There's the old trucks, old arch bar trucks, vintage technology there. There's another old piece of rail repurposed as a brace. This car has its cabinet in place with a bunch of original bits and pieces to maintain this equipment. What's this here? Old radio pamphlet. Here's some of the additional bracing tubing, air tanks, a bunch of line to feed all the appliances from the air tanks. There's a side door. There's a coal stove. There's your heat source in the middle of winter in an uninsulated boxcar. Still some coal left in the bucket. There's one of those air cylinders underneath to control the wings. There's the inside of the elevation. Here's the front control compartment. Each side has a set of controls for the wings. You can see the labels. They're all air valves. Got a bench. Got a set for the front nose. Pressure gauge. There's a signal line. This runs all the way back to the locomotive behind, so you can signal the engineer on the locomotive that's shoving this to either go forward, go back, slow down, speed up. Because this unit doesn't have propulsion of its own, it relies on the locomotives behind. So the guy sitting in front of this wood car body is totally at the mercy of the guy behind him with the locomotives. Otherwise, they make an ice sandwich. Some more controls here, the other side. This is SP Rotary MW206, built by Alco. Here's a view of the business end with the big rotary blades. These can throw snow up and over away from the tracks. This unit's heavily built because it gets shoved on with a locomotive into a snowbank. You can see the truck's springing's been replaced with solid plate so it doesn't bounce up and down. Here's the big fan. There's a chute on top that could direct the snow either direction. And you can rotate the fan a different direction to throw it the other way. This coupler is removable along with the crossbar, so it gives the snow a path right into that big blade. You can scoop it in with those big side doors. Those are adjustable to some extent. Another reinforced truck set, no springing, just solid mount. Little bird nest. Just go up inside and have a look. As you read, this has been converted, so it's going to run off the power from the diesel locomotive behind it to run these motors. It used to have its own power plant on board, but as they modernized things, they went to this system. Let's go up into the control compartment here. Here's some old pictures, some inspection material. Probably would have been a water cooler or something back there. Apparently the nose bearing was pretty good because it's been in there since '49. That water glass is probably for the steam generator and back. You don't want to let those run out of water. Some old switches. Oh, field loop. So that's for the motors. There's some of the controls. Things are a little bit better labeled on this more modern unit. Lots of defrosting capability. Steam supply, air supply. There's a window winder. More defrosting. That might have been part of the function of the steam on board, was to heat this and defrost it, keep things from icing up. Visibility would be pretty important on board. Wouldn't want to run over a switch stand or derail the thing. Speedometer. Those central controls look like they might be for the fan blade. Labeled pusher, that would make sense. And we got a brake stand in the back there. Looks like an independent and an automatic. Maybe even dynamic brakes. This may have been able to control the locomotive shoving behind. More controls for the left side. Looks like some air brake feed valves and a cutout valve. Some rotary controls. Amp meter. Yeah, it looks to me like you could control just about everything from this one spot. Kind of looks like they might have used MU cables and hoses to connect this to the pusher units. Whistle and horn controls, Sanders, bell. There's the chute on top. That would rotate. You can see it's tilted to the right to cause the snow to blow to the left, but that would swing around the other way, causing it to blow to the other side. So it looks like you could fit a crew of about 4 people plus backups in there if needed. If the guys really knew the territory, they'd know where all the switch stands were and the obstacles that they needed to look out for. There's some of the power units, the electric motors for this setup, and the cables running through those conduits above. We'll go down here and take a look at the steam generator. This looks a lot like a large version of a steam cleaner. You've got some glow plugs on top and a fuel supply coming in through those tubes. This could very well function in a similar way. We know it has a big water tank. There's some instructions on filling everything up. Some inspection cards. 1980s on that one. Some cable there. Another rack for more cable on the left side. Those would have been the lifeline to the power source, which would have been the locomotives behind. Let's take a look through the back door. You'd be staring right at the nose or the back end of another locomotive. If it was something like an F unit, you could put diaphragm to diaphragm and walk straight across. Probably use a restroom because I don't think this one had one on board. Let's take a walk around the backside, see what's going on. There's some more of those hookups. Tons of cable, handbrake on the left there, lots of hoses. This is SP Flanger SPMW 322, built in 1922. Let's take a look at this truck set. You can see the steel tube that they've put in to replace the spring packs. That keeps everything nice and level, no bounciness, prevents your plow from digging into the ties and tearing up your railroad, which is kind of the last thing you want to do in the middle of winter. There's one of the two guide brackets. You can see the other one further over. That guides this, keeps it steady, allows you to raise and lower it. And a mirror image for this other side. That helps move the snow out from between the rails so it doesn't compact and turn into ice that could potentially cause a derailment. Same setup for the rear truck. When this car was originally built, they probably would have been plain bearing, but this has been converted to roller bearing. It's possible they even changed out the side frames to a whole different roller bearing setup. Very simple wooden car body. Some service in 1978 and 1980. Cleaned, oiled, tested, and stenciled. There's that view of the guide. Still a little bit of oil on it. There's a re-railer. Those would be handy. There's probably a couple of those on board originally. That'd be pretty important because if you climbed up on the ice before the flanger got in there to clean it out, you'd need those to get back on top of the rail. Let's take a look inside. There's the old Motorola radio pack. Look at that thing. It's huge with a bird's nest on top. There's some air controls. Those are likely the controls for the flanger positions. You could probably stand right there and control both of these from one spot because I don't see any controls near each of these. There's a little rod that goes to the top for an indicator. Tells you whether it's up or down. Got some coal ready for the stove here. That probably wouldn't really heat this very much in the winter. There's another indicator rod for this other unit. That way the engineer could tell whether they were up or down, potentially slow the train down if you weren't responding in time for a bridge or a crossing or something. Some lights. Pretty simple inside. Here's a tool chest. You store extra hoses. There's some safety reflectors there. There's an oxyacetylene setup in case things get really serious. You need to cut some metal. There's the emergency brake valve, so you could pull that to dump the air if something really bad happened and needed to stop right now. There's another air gauge. There might have been a conductor's brake valve there, but it's hard to tell. One little breaker. That's about it. There's a radio antenna on top. There's the little indicators on top that show whether or not the plow blades are up or down. As you're traveling along the railroad, you'll see a little half chevron as an approach before an obstacle like a switch, a bridge, or a grade crossing. And it's really important to pick those up before you hit those, otherwise it could spell disaster. This is Southern Pacific SPMW 407 Jordan spreader. This design is more similar to the Weyerhaeuser snow dozer that I showed you first, where it has movable wings and a movable nose to help move material and snow out of the way. This could also be used for spreading ballast or bringing ballast up to the shoulder of the railroad to groom the sides. Extremely versatile piece of equipment. This one does have springs in the truck. It's probably because they're not such tight clearances as it would be with a flanger. You can see it's heavily reinforced. There's the length of the main wing, quite long, and then the armoring on the front to protect the truck. Here's the lower lip of the wing with a bunch of weld to repair cracks and damage over time. Lots of air cylinders going on there to control everything. Roller bearing truck. Six by 11 bearing. Let's take a look inside. See what's going on in here. Looks like we've got an old Worthington air compressor on board here. There's the exhaust. Handbrake wheel over there. Storage. There it is. Still in there. Looks to be in pretty good shape. There's the tank. There's a little sliding barn door that separates you from the noise of the air compressor. Some extra bulbs. Looks like some things have been removed. There's a radio. Some light controls. Pile National. There's a selector switch with a resistor on top. Some more switches. And there are all the air controls for the wings, left and right. Neat little light housing there. That reminds me of something you'd see on a steam locomotive. There's a little peephole for the light to come out. There would have been a gauge there too. There's an air dump valve, another light and a gauge, and controls for the other side. And presumably the nose controls would have also been somewhere along there, but I'm not sure which one is which. Got this pull cord. Looks like it might blow a horn. It's hard to tell from here. I can't see where it went up above the roof. Neat little switch. Probably some means of communicating with the engineer. Again, this one is not self-propelled, so you'd have to communicate with engineers in order to run this. Those are long wings. You can reach out a long way, move dirt or rock, whatever you need to do. These are extremely versatile pieces of equipment. Track jack, not aluminum, not your friend. Thanks for joining me on this tour of the snow equipment at Train Mountain. If you're ever in the area, check in at the office and they'll let you walk around and explore it for yourself.